What is this? I raised my voice as I looked at a photograph. The photo captured the sleeping face of a cute baby. The reason for my astonishment was the documents that had been hidden away along with the photo. Inside the drawer that contained the photo, there was also a filled-out divorce form. I had a growing suspicion that my husband might be cheating. But the photo of this baby was beyond anything I had imagined. The baby had eyes similar to my husband's and downturned eyebrows. Could it be my husband's secret child? My hands trembled with anger as I gently clenched them, taking the photo and the divorce form out of the drawer. 7 years of marriage, dedicated solely to work, he hardly paid any attention to me, yet I supported him devotedly. I had hoped that once his work settled down, we might have a future with children. I could never forgive such betrayal. I swore to take my revenge. I began preparations for a scheme in the living room. I had prepared something for my revenge against my husband. My name is Catherine, 35 years old. I help out at my parents' diner while living with my husband, Tom. It's been 7 years since we got married, but we don't have children. While I didn't have a strong desire for children, the main reason was Tom's busy work schedule. Tom, who took over the family's real estate business, has been working late every day since we got married. Taking on the business at a young age must be harder than one can imagine. It was difficult to find time for just the two of us. Before we got married, he used to visit the diner where I worked frequently and pursued me aggressively. My meeting with Tom started when he began visiting the diner as a customer. After several visits, learning that I was helping out at my family's diner, Tom said, "I'm also studying to take over my family's business." Since then, he came to the diner every day, inviting me out on dates and occasionally bringing me small gifts, completely winning me over. Now, he goes straight to his room without even looking at me when he comes home, fully dedicated to his work, making the Tom of the past seem like a lie. Some days he stays overnight at work, and lately, he has been on business trips out of the state. He often leaves home for long periods for business expansion. Yet, I am completely satisfied with our life. I've always loved working at the diner I've helped out at since I was a child, and I can make sure my parents, who are past their 60th birthdays, don't overdo it. Regular customers still call me Katie, a nickname that hasn't changed since I was a child, and despite feeling embarrassed, I'm happy to have such familiar interactions. We might not be a lovey-dovey couple, but we are both dedicated to our work, leading to a very fulfilling life. Catherine, can I talk to you for a moment? One evening, Tom, who rarely comes home for dinner, called out to me. What's up? I have something to discuss. Dinner's ready, so please wait a bit. It was unusual for Tom, who usually takes his dinner from the kitchen to his room, to talk to me face to face. I quickly set the dinner on the table and sat down opposite Tom. It had been a long while since we had dinner together. So, what do you want to discuss? When I asked Tom, he hesitated, saying, "It's a bit difficult to talk about." Before he began his story. The discussion was about selling the land of my family home, the diner, which is located right in front of the nearest station. It used to be surrounded by an old shopping district, but urban development has rapidly progressed in the last decade, bringing in new fashion buildings and chain stores. Due to the convenient transportation to the city center, although I don't know the details, I believe this area could be considered prime real estate. With the entire region pushing for urban development, eviction discussions are bound to come up eventually. In that case, Tom wants me to let him handle the sale. He then handed me a sales contract with the sale amount written on it. You've already made a contract? I couldn't help but raise my voice, still not ready to accept this. Tom said it's common sense to prepare documents in advance so that customers can sign the contract immediately when they decide to sell. Is that really the case? While pondering this, I looked over the contract. He mentioned it's not a bad deal and asked me to talk to my parents about it as soon as possible. For me, who has been helping out at the diner since elementary school. The diner is filled with memories. Honestly, even if the selling price is high, I don't want to let it go. Still, if development progresses and we eventually have to move out, perhaps it's best to leave it to Tom, my husband. After listening to Tom's entire story, I told him, I'll discuss it with my parents. As we finished dinner and the dishes were cleared, I began cleaning up in the kitchen. I'm aware of the aggressive development around the station that's been happening for about 10 years. Many of the familiar individual shops in front of the station have been replaced with large buildings and chain stores. I understand it's convenient and probably inevitable with the times. Tom repeated. It really is a good deal. Before disappearing into his room, leaving me feeling down as I went about my household chores. That night, after 10 p.m., I turned off the TV in the living room and was about to head to the bedroom when I heard voices arguing from Tom's room. I was about to pass by, but stopped when I caught part of their conversation about the land around the nearest station. It seemed like the conversation was with my father-in-law, and Tom was discussing work-related matters over the phone with him. From the corridor, it was clear that Tom was being sternly warned by his father, though I couldn't make out the details. Tom's father is a traditional, stubborn man, not very affable, but he despises dishonesty and has a strong sense of justice. He is someone I can trust as an individual. Receiving a warning from such a father, especially about the land around the station. Could it be related to the consultation Tom brought up today? Pondering over this, the call with his father seemed to end, and I quietly entered the bedroom without being noticed by Tom and went to sleep. The next day, after the diner closed and I finished my work, I talked to my parents about the land sale consultation Tom had mentioned. Reluctantly, I showed the sales contract Tom had given me to my parents. My father exclaimed in surprise, and my mother looked at the sale amount with a frown. Did Tom forget to add a zero? According to my parents, a real estate agent handling the development project around the nearest station had visited the diner multiple times, and they were in the midst of negotiations. The agent had repeatedly explained that there was no rush and that they wanted to proceed with the eviction in a manner that both parties could agree on, and the offered sale amount was several times higher than what was written on Tom's sales contract. Although I know nothing about the value of land, the difference in sale amounts seemed suspicious to me. I also told my parents about the phone conversation between Tom and his father the night before. That's surely suspicious of Tom, isn't it? With the doubts that had been growing since last night, I nodded in agreement with my mother's words. After discussing it as a family, we decided to contact my father-in-law to decline the offer and hire a detective agency to investigate Tom's background. About a month after that family meeting, on a Sunday, I returned home from work at the diner to find a large suitcase in the entrance. It was the one Tom always uses for his long business trips. I'll be on a business trip for a week starting tomorrow, so I won't be back. Tom, who was in the living room, told me this. He mentioned that a new business venture was going well, and he would be busier than ever, resulting in more time away from home. While I listened to Tom's explanation about being away for a week with a cheerful expression, inside, I was doing a victory pose. I had been waiting for this moment. I allowed myself a sly grin without Tom noticing. Suddenly, I noticed several documents that looked like estimates and a business card on the living room table. Picking them up, I saw they were moving estimates and the business card of the person in charge. As I looked over the moving estimates, Tom casually mentioned, "Since I'm hardly ever home, I've decided to move out of this house and into my father's place." In other words, without consulting me, he had unilaterally decided we would be moving in with his father. I thought, what is he even talking about all of a sudden? I was astonished but did not show any sign of suspicion, continuing to play the obedient wife and listen to Tom. Tom went on to say that he had already arranged the move, and that packing and all future interactions with the moving company were my responsibility. Yeah. You're busy every day, Tom, and I understand about moving in with your father. Leave the moving preparations to me. When I seemingly agreed without any doubt to move in with his father, Tom simply said okay and disappeared into his room, as usual. The next day, as Tom left the house for his business trip, I headed straight to his room. I checked the shelves where his work documents were messily stored, around the bed, the closet, and finally, went over to the desk Tom always uses for work. One of the drawers in the desk was locked with a key. I pulled out a small silver key from my pocket and inserted it into the keyhole of the drawer. With a click, the drawer opened. During this month of harboring doubts about Tom, I had secretly checked his room and found the locked drawer suspicious. Tom, unaware of my suspicions, was careless with the key's hiding place, which I found immediately. I had made a copy of the key without Tom noticing. Inside the drawer, there was a filled-out divorce form and a photo. The photo showed the cute sleeping face of a newborn baby. Sigh. Even though I knew it, I couldn't help feeling disappointed. To think I had been married to such a man for 7 years. There was a reason why I didn't show any disturbance to Tom's abrupt announcement about moving to his father's place last night. A few days earlier, I had received the results from the private detective agency I had hired to investigate Tom. The findings were damning. Tom had been cheating and even had a secret child. Moreover, Tom was planning to sell my family's diner land to add to his assets before divorcing me. In essence, his aggressive pursuit before our marriage wasn't because he was interested in me, but because he had his eyes on my family's land from the start. I felt deeply insulted. Anger made my hands tremble as I held the photo. But I am not the kind of woman to cry and back down now. For Tom's infidelity, secret child, and attempt to take my family's property, I had to take proper revenge. I decided not to waste the divorce form Tom had so thoughtfully prepared, filling in my name and signing it. Then, as promised, I began packing for the move. However, I didn't touch Tom's belongings at all, quickly packing only my own things into cardboard boxes. Although the number of items had increased over the 7 years, by the afternoon of the 3rd day, I had finished packing everything and shipped the boxes to my parents' house. I sat on the sofa, looking around the room now filled only with Tom's belongings. I thought, so, today is the day I say goodbye to this room. After a moment of sentimentality, I stood up, determined, and went straight to the courthouse to submit the divorce form. I was planning to head straight to my parents' house, but as I passed by an electronics store, an idea struck me. I purchased a particular electronic device and left the store. A week later, I was enjoying a comedy show with my family, feeling the warmth of being together. Then, the ringtone of my smartphone placed on the coffee table started playing. It's a call from Tom. My voice drew the attention of my parents, who had been laughing at the TV just moments before. Ignoring Tom's call, I tapped an app on my smartphone to launch it. The app displayed Tom on the screen. I had bought a pet camera from an electronics store and set it up in the living room, hoping to catch Tom's frantic behavior upon returning from his business trip. This type of camera, often used to watch pets while away, now served a different purpose. The app showed Tom pacing around the room, now devoid of my belongings, stomping his feet in frustration and fiddling with his phone in irritation. His calls were disconnecting and then ringing again repeatedly. No matter how much he tried to contact me, we were strangers now. I had no intention of answering the phone. Watching Tom turn red with frustration and continue to dial made me think. I thought, this is way more entertaining than the comedy show. I burst into laughter, joking. He should quit real estate and try his hand at comedy instead. Come on, laughing that much is almost too cruel. My mother chided. When my smartphone, now on silent mode, had calmed down, I checked to find 136 missed calls recorded. It was impressive how persistent he was. The last time I checked the pet camera, Tom appeared to be on the phone, probably trying to locate me through his father. Thinking that I would be at his father's house after our divorce was naive. Well, he didn't know yet that we were no longer a couple. About an hour after the first call, instead of the phone, it was the intercom that rang. My mother quietly checked the visitor through the peephole. "Tom's here," she whispered, turning to me. On the other side of the door stood Tom, pale and drenched in sweat, gasping for breath, clearly having rushed over. "Catherine and Deborah, stay back in the room. I'll handle this," my father said, waiting for us to move away before opening the door. "What's the matter, coming over so late at night?" my father asked Tom, who desperately tried to catch his breath before asking. "Isn't Catherine here? You are living with her, aren't you?" Ignoring Tom's question, my father pressed on, hoping Tom would slip up in his answers. "No, that's just it. She suddenly disappeared, and, her things are gone too." Hearing Tom's faltering words, my father sighed deeply, unimpressed. "Catherine is here, isn't she? Please let me see her." Tom's voice, filled with frustration, echoed all the way to us. To the shouting Tom at the doorstep, my father firmly stated, "Catherine has properly submitted the divorce papers at the courthouse. You two are no longer husband and wife." He demanded that Tom pay alimony. "What? The divorce papers have been submitted? And alimony? What are you talking about? I haven't done anything to deserve this. I should be the one demanding alimony." Insisting that he wouldn't accept the divorce and demanded to see me, Tom wouldn't budge. My father handed him an envelope. Urged to check its contents, Tom's face turned pale upon seeing them. Inside the envelope were the detective agency's findings. Photos capturing Tom with his affair partner and the baby photo I found in his drawer were included. "The divorce is finalized, and there's no chance of reconciliation. And we won't be selling the land to you," my father told him calmly. Tom, shaking, put the photos and documents back into the envelope, muttering, "I can't divorce. These photos could be fabricated. These documents are lies, it could be a scam. It's dangerous, let me see Catherine quickly." As Tom became agitated and lunged towards my father. "Enough!" shouted someone. Tom's father stepped in between Tom and my father, having arrived unnoticed after I discreetly informed him of Tom's visit. I had also shared the detective agency's findings with Tom's father. He had offered to do whatever he could to help. After Tom's father slapped him on the head, he apologized on behalf of his son, saying, "I'm sorry my son has caused trouble." Tom resisted, insisting the matter wasn't settled, but after being hit on the head again by his father, he was forcefully taken back home. Once Tom and his father were out of sight, my parents and I looked at each other and burst into laughter, releasing all the tension. My father, who had stepped in to talk to Tom for me, and my mother, who had stayed by my side throughout Tom's shouting, were both able to laugh about the situation. Despite the trouble my divorce had caused, I was profoundly grateful to be their child. A few days after the commotion, my parents and I took a taxi to visit a certain company. The destination was a major construction company that Tom had been dealing with. As we arrived and got out of the taxi, Tom appeared, led by his father. I had intended never to see him again, but it couldn't be helped. Today was the final showdown. At the company's reception, we were greeted by the president of the construction company and his daughter. We were then led to a conference room where the president, his daughter, me, my father, my mother, and Tom's father sat in a row. Tom was prompted by the president to sit alone on a chair opposite the long table. Sitting across from the six of us, Tom looked uncomfortable and unwell, as if he was in an interview. "Thank you all for gathering today," said the president, who seemed to be about the same age as my father. Despite his gentle appearance, his words carried significant weight, reflecting his responsibility as the head of the company. The president explained that he had something important to discuss with us, which was why he arranged this meeting. He and Tom's father were acquainted, and this meeting was set up at the request of Tom's father. I was meeting the president and his daughter, Emily, for the first time today. However, I was well aware of who Emily was. She was the woman Tom had an affair with, as detailed in the investigation report. This meant she was the mother of Tom's secret child. My apologies, but could you introduce yourself? Prompted Tom's father. Standing up, I turned to face the president and Emily. I'm Catherine. Well, I was Tom's wife. But we divorced a few days ago. As I revealed my relationship with Tom, the president frowned, and Emily looked shocked, tears welling in her eyes. So, it's true that Tom was married? Emily said. She was completely unaware of Tom's marital status. Although Tom's marital status should have been communicated to her before this meeting, the reality seemed to hit her hard when she faced his ex-wife. Tears streamed down Emily's face. She had been told that they couldn't register their marriage due to strong opposition from Tom's father, but had been promised that Tom would persuade him soon. I remembered Tom's charming demeanor and passionate pursuit before our marriage, all of which now felt like a performance. Emily, like me, had been completely deceived by Tom's act. The president, suppressing his anger, questioned Tom. Tom, you claimed that the land near the station was yours. Is that true? Tom stumbled over his words. Well, that's... Before Tom could continue, I intervened. That land belongs to me. It's not Tom's. Tom had hidden his marital status, fathered a child with Emily, and lied about owning the land to gain favor with the president for his own benefit. No. President, that's not it. There's been a misunderstanding. That land is definitely mine. Tom tried to explain, but couldn't continue. So, you've deceived us completely, including my daughter. I will never forgive you for hurting her. I'll contact our legal advisor immediately and take legal action. Be prepared, exclaimed the president, slamming his hand down on the table, causing Tom to flinch. Following the president's declaration, I raised my hand to speak. Despite dedicating 7 years to balancing work and home life, I was betrayed. I'm sorry, Emily, but finding out about the affair and the secret child was a shock, and the attempt to take my family's land is unforgivable. I'll be seeking proper compensation. My parents nodded vigorously in agreement, raising their voices. What do you think those 7 years meant to our daughter? Don't ever come near our diner again. You won't see our daughter ever again. They reprimanded him for his sudden visit the other day. Emily, who had been crying with her face in her hands, suddenly looked up and glared at Tom with a fury like never before. I didn't know he was married. Now that there's a child, what are we going to do? I'll make sure you pay the compensation and child support. Tom, who had been making excuses all this while, began to sweat profusely and soon found himself unable to speak, his mouth opening and closing in silence. Seeing Tom showing no signs of remorse, his father sighed deeply and apologized on his behalf. My son has truly caused trouble. He will take full responsibility. He promised. Standing up, his father approached Tom and said, I never thought you'd be this disgraceful. You are disowned. And declared that he would close the real estate business with his generation, as he could not trust Tom with the business he had carefully expanded. Tom finally collapsed from his chair, unable to sit up, and his father had no choice but to take him to a nearby hospital. It was diagnosed as a temporary hyperventilation due to stress, but no one was concerned. Since then, I have not seen Tom at all. Nor do I plan to in the future. I heard that Tom, who lost his job, family, and savings, was forcefully placed in a construction company in the countryside through his father's connections. Working hard on site to pay for the compensation and child support, it was a self-inflicted outcome. Burdened with enormous debt, Tom was left to live a life of solitary labor. As for me, I continue to work at my family's diner. During a quiet moment after the lunch rush, lost in thought, I was brought back to reality by the cry of a baby. I'm sorry. Look, stop crying, there. Emily, who was having tea in the diner's room, apologized as she soothed her crying baby. Since that meeting, Emily and I hit it off and have become close friends. It's okay. Crying is a baby's job, after all. They're still adorable even when they cry. I took the baby from Emily, who had come for a break from parenting, and rocked it gently, making the baby giggle. My mother, wiping a nearby table, said, "You're getting quite good at holding the baby." Although I haven't been blessed with children of my own, the baby is innocent in all this. I truly hope for the baby's happiness and believe Emily will be a great mother. Watching this child grow has become my greatest joy. In this one aspect alone, I might even thank Tom, I thought, smiling ruefully without anyone noticing.